Today, my guest is a leader who proves that you don't need to be an engineer to make a real difference in the energy industry. You just need to be honest about what you don't know. EJ Wise is the founder and CEO of Positive Energy, an EV charging and electrification infrastructure organization making waves in the USA. His journey started in media technology, but a chance investment led to him running sales teams of alumni of Tesla and SpaceX at Romeo Power. And it was there that he learned a critical lesson, which is you should not fake it until you make it. Since then, he pivoted his own company into battery storage and electrification, and he is in final discussions about winning one of the largest charging as a service awards in the whole of the United States. Today, we discuss that incredible journey, his career, fun stories, and lessons learned, including why falling in love with the problem is always better than falling in love with the solution. So let's dive right in. So EJ, welcome to Better Than We Found It.
Pleasure to be here, my friend. Excited for the conversation.
It's been a long time coming. It's probably the longest episode from first conversation to getting it recorded, but I'm very excited to do this. So I'm glad I stuck in there and persevered.
That's basically Josh saying I'm a really tough guest.
Yeah.
Not so many words. Oh, good.
Or a really good guest that we
really
need to
good
persevere to get on.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I've done a quick intro to you, but I'm sure I didn't do it all the justice it was deserving of. So would you mind, for the audience and those who don't know you, to give a quick introduction to yourself and your business?
Sure. This is I'm EJ Wise, the CEO and founder of Positive Energy. We are an EV charging infrastructure company based here in the U.S. We mainly focus on large municipal customers, cities, large retail enterprise customers for all their electrification needs, mainly focusing on L3 fast charging, do some L2 infrastructure, and where it makes sense, energy storage. That's kind of where we sit today. We're also currently rolling out what we believe will be the largest, most reliable public charging network in the U.S. We're really excited about. We also have a patent pending on an EV charger that can charge a car about as fast as you can fuel it. I might say a little faster, but we'll see where that gets to. And that caveat is when batteries in cars can handle the charge. I think we're pretty close to doing that. We're also starting to build out some inductive charging, wireless charging, and autonomous vehicle charging. So we're always looking to future-proof what we do. But in a nutshell, we are looking to really bring electrification up to the next level to make sure that we're providing the most reliable charging, either for customers that are buying it for their own fleets or those that want to use it via public charging. That's kind of what we do from a high level perspective.
Excellent. Well, lots to dive into there. I'm keen to do that. But one of the things that really stood out to me when we first started talking and I was introduced to you was that you've had a very colorful and successful career before you joined the world of renewable energy and electrification in the media industry and wider technology. Maybe it would be good to just give some context to your background and what it was that you did, because it was a very different area of business back then.
Yeah, I was in media technology, focusing mainly on digital media for probably the majority of my career. And I've been lucky. I've had, not like I've pocketed all the capital behind or the cash behind it, but I've had 7 exits, my last 7 companies, which is pretty remarkable. I've been around a lot of smart people. I've learned a lot from every step along the way. But in the media technology world, my job was to help monetize the technology. So to figure out how do we appropriately either sell the ads around it, monetize the content behind it, figure out what platforms the content should live on, so on and so forth. So I did that, started off at Sportsline, became CBS Sports, then CBS Sports. I built out fantasy football before everyone even knew what it was. We built out a product called March Madness on Demand. It's funny, I used to tell, I'm the son of a retired judge from Chicago. And I used to tell my dad, we're going to watch sports and news on the web. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, don't say that out loud around me. It's not going to happen. I'm like, trust me, we're going to watch everything on. So back at Sportsline, we actually figured out how to watch sports, in live streaming, big events. And then I got into a couple other really great companies along the way. Eventually, fun fact, I worked for company called Funny or Die. Will Ferrell founded the company. So I always like to talk about that one. And it was like CAA made Sequoia Capital, and they were building like crazy funny content. And they're like, okay, how are we gonna get advertisers around Zach Galifianakis is between two ferns? Like, no one wants to be around that. Ed, you figure it out. So that was like my whole like career. And then I had to stop at Pinterest. Every time I would leave corporate America, like or a startup, corporate America would pull me back in. Like Sportsline became CBS, so I'm at the network, right? Then I went to Funny or Die, and Turner acquired part of the company. It was always like, wait, I like building things, and here we are, at back in corporate world, wearing the jacket and the pocket square, which I'm honored to wear today for the podcast. And the funny part about it was when I was kind of getting out of the media world, I was an angel investor in a couple different startups. I invested in a company called Romeo Power. It was a Tesla SpaceX crew that started to build a battery technology company, EV battery packs for cars and trucks. They were making the most energy dense battery packs in the world. I believe they still have that under their under their whatever you want to call it. And and so I invested. I'm like, oh, I can invest in like a Tesla spinoff. Like, I'm in. A friend of mine was telling me I can invest. I knew the CEO, one of the co-founders, and then maybe like 2 years later, I was coming back from a boondoggle in the south of France, the typical festival every year, and I decided to meet up at this birthday party for a very famous person that I'll leave anonymously out of this conversation. And I was lucky to be at his birthday. And I was like, you're flying back from like the south of France to go to some birthday party in New York? What are you, crazy? I'm like, yeah, well, I have to be there. And because I did that, that's why it's where I sit today. So at that birthday, I had no idea the CEO of Romeo Power was there. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm at this birthday like you. He's like, no, come work for me. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know anything about energy. I have no idea do what for you. He's like, you know what you're really good at? Everywhere you've gone, you're great at monetizing things. You see things before they happen. And you're really good at building out really good teams. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you see that. Maybe I see a little bit of that. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what. After like the 3 or 4 drinks you've already had in you, if you can remember this conversation, he's like, I'm going to fly you to Los Angeles. You'll meet the team. I'm like, sure you are. Call me tomorrow. Great to see you. I love the guy. He's like a brother to me. And I'm like, he's not going to call me tomorrow. He calls me tomorrow. I was like, well, we got to book the flight. I'm like, what's the worst I'm going to do? I'm going to fly out to LA. My dad retired to San Diego. I'll go see him for a little while. I get a free trip, and I'll meet some really cool guys that like used to report directly to Elon Musk, and like some really successful guys at SpaceX and Tesla. Cool, I'm in. So I flew out there. I walk into a manufacturing facility. I'm like, there's no way I'll ever take this job. This is crazy.
And just for context, at that stage, that was a world you'd never been in before.
Never been in before. I'm not even sure I ever set foot in a factory before. Definitely not a battery manufacturing facility. I pull up on it. I'm like, I'm used to like, corporate America media. Like everything is like, you can imagine like whatever you want. Here it is, And I walk in, I'm like, what is this place? But I came in with an open mind. I sat down with the guys, and they're like, hey, look, here's the deal. Mike told us like you got the job. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, like the job's yours to be like, what job? I don't know what job I'm applying for. Like, he's like, we just got to make sure that you like us. And so it's funny. We talked about like fantasy football and all this crazy stuff with like, I don't know, like this one guy who built the Dragon and Falcon pack that's floating to Mars for SpaceX. And I'm like, you're talking like, and he doesn't really know that much about football, but he was doing it to, kind of bring me in. And I remember like leaving LA, driving to San Diego, and calling one of my mentors up. And I'm like, he's like, how'd it go? I'm like, it's very interesting. We don't really talk about anything about batteries. The only thing they asked me was like, can you help us? Here's our problem. We've got this great technology. We don't know what it's worth. We don't know how to sell. We don't know how to negotiate it. We don't know who we should be targeting it to, what customers, like none of it. And we hear you can really help us there. And I'm like, oh, that was like the only thing we talked about with like, and I asked a couple of questions about the culture and this, that, the other. So on the drive, he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. It's like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. It's a pretty interesting opportunity. And, they're going to go literally democratize clean energy and make energy accessible to everyone in the world. And I love that. I want to have a purpose-driven job in my life. Like, I'd love to be able to do that. So he's like, so what's the risk? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, there is no risk. you take the job, right? You negotiate a good deal for yourself. Worst case, you're back in media in a year and, you tried something out. Best case, you never go back to media and you make a difference in the world. At least a small, piece of a difference. And I noodled on that. It's funny. As I was driving to San Diego, you can't make this stuff up. I had another CEO of a company that I really like in the media space. And he was flying to San Diego for I meet somebody. He's like, I want to meet you because I want to hire you as my chief revenue officer. I'm like, what? So I'm like, okay, I'll take the meeting. Because I actually hired him. Well, I used to work at Mashable, and so I hired him to help us with it's like a Salesforce kind of platform. So I hired him to use the platform. And I love this guy. So I'm like, I'll take the meeting because I like you, but. So I have this confrontation with myself. Like, I got this job, which is simple. I could take this step up, make a lot of money. He's going to sell his company, whatever else, or take this risk on energy. And I said, you know what? I'm taking the risk on energy. So that's how I got into the space. And a couple of years later, after, learning the business like the hard way, and I fell in love with energy storage there. We started building out, we were using the battery pack we made for cars and trucks. Well, we can turn this into the best energy storage product behind the meter, and we started closing some huge deals on both sides. And long story short, I ended up a couple years later leaving to start Positive Energy with the blessing of pretty much the whole team at Romeo. So, I think it's something just to say to the audience would be always take a risk if you got a chance, right? Like, get out of your comfort zone. I know it's like a cliche thing to say, but it's the truth. Like, jump outside of where you're comfortable and learn what you might not know. Like, when I went to Funny or Die, which is Will Ferrell's company and whatnot, I knew nothing about comedy. Everyone's like, you're nuts. You're leaving the best job at CBS, go work for some startup that might not be here in a year. Great. Okay, I'm going to do, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to learn comedy. I'm going to learn I work with Sequoia Capital. I used to sit literally on a board next to one of the top guys at Sequoia, one of the top VC firms in the world. And he taught me how to deal with boards. I would never learn that otherwise, right? Ever. No chance. And I learned a whole new space on content, blah, 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 blah. And I think we always have to, not just take the risk, take the leap of faith, right? You take a calculated risk, but I think it's important because I always think about what are you good at doing and what do you like to do? And where do those things intersect? So I could have taken my God-given talents to pretty much any industry. I just happened at the time taking the media technology. Now it's energy. I think it's really important because, this as someone that hires people, it's really important to be self-aware on what you're good at doing and then figuring out where you can apply it. So I was always good at monetizing stuff and it's kind of why we pivoted into EV charging, when we did, and we can get into that story later. But I think know who you are and understand how you could be a contributor to whatever that company may be. And don't try to be someone that you're not. I think a lot of times people start to be someone that I'm sure I can do a lot of other jobs inside my company, but that's not who I am. And I won't be good at doing those jobs. Yeah, I'd be average. I'd be average at best. Yeah.
So I think a few things to pick up on there. So the first thing is the being in a room outside your comfort zone. You're talking to individuals who have obviously accomplished a lot so far, and admittedly, into something which you don't know anything about. How do you hold the conversation there? How do you approach something like that to position yourself in a positive way, but with that humility to know what you don't know?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that question directly, but I take a quick jump back. And someone asked me when I was at Funny or Die and Turner acquired the company, I went over to Turner as a senior vice president, which is unheard of. Usually you have to earn that stripe, and there's a lot of people inside the company that want that job. So when I got there, the first thing I said to myself was, they all want to know, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this? Hey, we hired you to tell us what to do, kind of a thing. Help us figure out different strategy, right? And I said, I don't want to do anything. I want to be a sponge. I'm going to listen. I think the hardest part is to actually listen, right? So in that room at Romeo was listening to what their problem and their challenges were. They didn't get to it until 30 minutes before we had to leave. What they told me was we negotiated this really bad deal. We gave it away. We don't understand how to negotiate. We didn't know what we should be doing here. We have this great product. We don't know should it be forklifts? Should it be cars? Should it be trucks? Should it be energy storage packs? We don't know. And I said, okay, great. So give me more information, because then I'm gonna digest it, and then I'll tell you either I don't know what to do either, or I might have an idea. It might sound completely crazy because I don't really understand your space at all yet. But here's what I'm thinking. And it's funny because like a year into the job as my team, and I was overseeing, I was the chief revenue officer and became the president of the energy storage division. My team would be on boondoggles to like, Europe, chasing after like, quite frankly, like, Ferrari and Lambo. And I'm like, why are we chasing after those guys? Like what's going to electrify first? Trucks. Let's go after like, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like, I didn't have to understand the space. I understood last mile, where you knew how to charge. So I think when you're in those conversations, the most important thing is to listen and then digest what they're saying and then respond. Because like, you're in an interview, you're trying to impress the person that's interviewing you. You're not even really paying attention to what they're even asking. You already have the canned answer in your head and you just spit it out, right? You're like, oh, yeah, and you just throw up on me. Like, I got to wash my jacket now. No, like take a step back, right? And because you might actually find out the job's not even for you. It's like you're in the wrong seat right now. And I think that to me was, and it's hard to do. You have to, because look, you got the clock, there's other candidates, you got all these things coming at you. But I always think like, stop, take a deep breath, digest it, right? Process it, and then speak. And what you might say might be, maybe you might actually sound intelligent at that point. But like, very rarely, like we just had we have our weekly sales call on Mondays. And I like really clear to my team, like, I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to hear. Like, if that's what you're going to tell me, I'd rather you not even talk. And like, now I just will like, and not like in a rude way, cut them off, be like, you're done. Cause it's not helpful to anybody. And I think like that to me is like being self-aware, knowing like who you are and what you're good at. So in that room, yeah, like it was like, I don't know anything about energy. And like, it was like, and then it came into, well, we don't know anything about negotiation, sales, pricing, go-to-market strategy, sales collateral. We don't know anything of that. So we'll teach you the battery space. You teach us all this other stuff, and let's find a happy medium. And that to me is like the perfect relationship, right? I don't want 10 people that look just like me on my team. I want people that have diverse thinking. That's how you solve really hard problems.
Because I think one of the phrases you told me when we first spoke was you have this phrase with your sales team, like, is it don't be the engineer or something like that, where know what you're good at and
know what you're good at. No one wants to hear a salesperson act like the sales engineer, right? Like no, and even if you have the right answer, like they're gonna put their guard up. Like I won't get into it because we talked about it before the call. Like we're lucky enough to be awarded the largest EV charging contract, I believe, and we're negotiating. We don't have the contract. We're negotiating as we speak. We believe we were awarded from the RFP, and they don't want to be sold at this point. They already gave us the award, right? So why are we trying? What are we selling them on? And I think a lot of times on the sales side, that's it. Like, no, they want to talk about the site plan, the engineer, like everything that has to be done in the execution phase to then get us hopefully to the contract, which we haven't signed yet. So yeah, it's really important that you play your role, and you have to rely on, because a lot of times on your team, like you're not hiring the sales engineer that you're going to war with. Maybe the CRO hires the sales engineer, and my SVP or VP of sales, whoever, are going into the conversation with the customer. And if they can't rely on the sales engineer to do his or her job, they're going to try to overcompensate. And they're going to say things that are going to, quite frankly, get the room in a little bit of a tiff, because they're like, why if the sales guy said, does that mean the engineer doesn't know what he's doing? Like, why did the engineer give me that answer? We had a lot of data scientists, and I'm always like, okay, I know the answer. And then I'm just praying that he or she can articulate it properly. When I was at Romeo, I always say, like, and there's a big difference on engineering, I think. I always tell my team, remember, you're a sales engineer. You're not an engineer. If you're an engineer, you'd be on the operations team or on the product team. You're on the sales team. So think about what you're saying and how you're going to actually sell through it to the customer. Know your role. If you want to be an engineer, not a sales engineer, this is not the right job for you. Because there's plenty of engineers that apply for sales engineering jobs. They can't sell to save their life. And you're like, oh God. Right? At Romeo, I think he's still the CTO now. I used to bring in I forgot what his title was at the time, but he's a genius. Maybe he was like data science, whatever he was, like battery scientist or cell scientist, but I use him as like my sales engineer. And I would go to like General Motors, and I would literally just have to walk in the room. Like, I remember he was so excited to be in the call. Like I brought him like to Michigan. He's bringing him coffee and he's like this, right? I'm like, dude, you're a rock star. You're like you wow them in the room. Sales guy walks in the room and they're like, where's my wallet? Make sure no one took it, right? Engineer walks in. He's got the gift, and they're buying into what he's saying, right? So why wouldn't you let that person speak? He's gonna sell. I don't have to do anything. He's gonna sell in the whole thing. Then all I got to do is take the order at that time. It's so simple. That's exactly what he did. And then he eventually became the chief technology officer because like, that's what happens. You see talent and it rises. So yeah, no, you know who you are. And I think like we just don't like, and look, we can look in the mirror all the time and try to figure out who we are. And I also think know what your strengths and weaknesses are, right? Like I have people on my team, whether hopefully they listen to this or not, sometimes they're good at things and some things they're not good at. And it's okay. Like I always say, you don't have to work on, like be great, like work on what you're already good at and be great at it. What you're not that good at, yeah, you gotta get enough to get by. Like if, I don't know, you're saying about, I think it's your son, you have an appointment tomorrow, whatnot. So let's say he was in school, he got 2 A's, a B and a C, and you had to hire a tutor. Where'd you put it? Most people would say I'm the C. Most people think tutor goes to the C, right? Of course, it's obvious. No. Why the C? The C's got to get a little bit better in to get to maybe a C plus or B minus. How about the B to an A or the A to an A plus? That's where he's going to go into the real world, and that's where his skills are.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think it's a good point in regards to actual team development as well. We see a lot of, particularly in the sales teams that we recruit for, a lot of the time, attention, training goes on the underperforming team members, whereas actually the best performing team members who could be even better, maybe get a bit left disenfranchised with the business and leave because they weren't the ones being invested in. If you focus on your top talent, make them better, then that's the real game changer for the business. So just to circle off your career journey then. So Romeo, from that meeting you went through, tell us about where the business went to and then what prompted you to begin and consider positive energy.
Yeah, I mean, aside from like working in a box for like, they're like, hey, sales guys, you go in the little corner over there and like we don't want to hear from you. And you're like, hey, build out energy storage. We had won the WeWork business at the time. The founder of the company was an investor in the company, and so he's like, he wanted to do energy storage. He was Adam Newman's before his time. He's a visionary. I was lucky enough to be at his house this past weekend, and he just like the way he handles himself. He just saw this. So the CEO Mike's like, go in the room, figure out energy storage for Adam and WeWork. I'm like, okay, like I don't think that's what I signed up for, but okay. So that's what we did for the first I don't remember how many months. And then we realized like permitting in New York where we were going to start was impossible, and you couldn't get batteries into New York because of the fire code. And it was just you had to crane it up to it was just crazy. So that quickly went into, hey, give me the the electric vehicles because I can go monetize the heck out of it, and I can really make something special out of this. And I'll like have someone else work on your forklift, whatever stuff. So Romeo was alive and kicking. I've never seen something like this. I've never in my entire career. I worked at some great companies. Usually we had to like beg the customers to go out to dinner with us. I'll buy you a steak dinner, I'll buy you drinks, whatever it was. Like above the board, I'm not buying your business. And okay, I'll take a meeting with you. Great. At Romeo, clients like General Motors were flying in to see us and then paying for our dinners. It was crazy. Signing like this, you name it. I spent a lot of time in Seoul with like LG and Samsung, and they'd fly in and see us. And it was just crazy. People, Next Year Energy, the biggest energy company possibly in the world, would fly in to see us. I became very close with, I used to call him the godfather of energy. And I became very close with him to help him with his energy story. So we were building a lot of good relationships, and we had a lot of business on the table, and the challenge with manufacturing that I think most people understand. Tesla took like 7 years to get off the line. Manufacturing is really hard. It takes a lot longer than you think and a lot more money than you think. So we had a lot of orders that we were having trouble filling because we had to get PAC certified. We had to get the lines up. We had there's a lot of kinks we had to work out. that we were going through the process. And the guy who ran our manufacturing facility, he built part of the Fremont factory for Tesla. So he knows what he's doing, but again, Tesla, it takes time to work out and to get the line where it needs to be. So anyway, through that process, I think we raised like $100+ million and we were running out of cash. And we decided to try to flip the company. So we went to Europe, try to sell it to an auto manufacturer. We almost did. We turned down the deal. So the executive team went. I was part of that. We went, tried to sell it. Long story short, Borg Warner came in and bailed us out with some capital after we turned that deal down. And then Borg Warner said, we're an automotive parts company. We don't want to be in energy storage. So the CEO is like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to run the cars and trucks for us? I'm like, oh, cars, trucks only, And what about energy storage? I have like a, $100+ million of backlog just sold like next year. To be honest with you, it was more like $1 billion when you looked at all the projects that he wanted to build with us, and we couldn't even come near filling it, and we weren't bankable. So we had all these issues. So basically, I was in a room in a WeWork, as we had to be because of our partnership with Adam and the company, sitting in a WeWork, and I'm like, what should we do here? Should I just and my boss is like, look, if you're the CRO, you could be the CRO, got a cush job, make a lot of money. You already got it's like humming, do whatever you want. Or you could take whatever you want out of the company and go start your own company. It's like, I'm like your friend. Literally, I'm your friend. I mean, still, like, I texted him for his birthday like 2 days ago. Like, we have a very good relationship. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me think about it and get back to you. Then I called him up and say, hey, can you get on a plane and fly to New York? Let's talk about it in person. So he did. And within like a half hour at like cocktails, we agreed on the transition. I came up with the name Positive Energy within like, I don't know, it just like popped in my head from, the guy upstairs, and we started the company. And then the first thing I did before I started the company was call a couple of my customers and said, if I did this, would you buy from me? If I did this, this, and this, and we started as an energy storage company. So we transitioned out of Romeo. And I also think like everything happens for a reason. Like there's so much of the story that was good and bad and ugly across my career where, it sounds all like amazing, but like there's a lot of, cultural challenges, some of the stops that we had. And, I won't get into bashing companies here, but some of the cultures were just atrocious. So you live through that, you learn about like, the politics and HR and everything else you have to like go through like the ugly way. And then Romeo had its ups and downs, like everything else, like a roller coaster. So when I started the company, I felt like it was the right time. And I took a leap of faith, and quite frankly, after like, 6 months, it was like, I don't know if we can get this thing off the ground. Raising capital is really hard. It was, a challenge. The energy space was still in its inception, like for energy storage, like behind the meter.
Because what year was the company founded?
I should know the answer off the top of my head. We're 2019.
Okay.
2019.
Okay.
So we're almost I guess we're almost 7 years old now. We'll be 7 in May.
But then early into the business formation, then you have the global pandemic.
Yeah, craziest part about the global pandemic, which I like to give a humble brag about, was our first paying customer happened right before the global pandemic, and it happened to be, I now say, we did Messi's soccer team stadium here in Miami. So Inter Miami was our first paying customer. At the time, it was Beckham's team. I'm like, we did Beckham Stadium, Now I'm like, forget that guy. We did Messi Stadium. Yeah, come on. We did Messi Stadium. And then we had to get it in before Major League Soccer went to go do a site walk. And that was like a couple of weeks right before COVID. So yeah, it was crazy. Like you went through COVID, we just tucked in a few $1 million, had our first paying customer, and we were really doing well. And then COVID hits, and no one knew what was going to happen at that point. And I'll be honest, that was one of the, how do you turn something bad into good? We knew that during COVID, there's going to be no interconnections being approved. No one's going out to do an environmental study. No one's doing a site visit. So it completely slowed our hope. We had signed a big developer, to an exclusive 4-year contract, and he had like $50+ million worth of business. But like his projects weren't going to get built for many years now because of the process being completely grinded to a halt. So that's kind of what, we had a couple other things that happened, but we, even I'll never forget the story where the CEO of Romeo took the company public, went public, traded at like $1 billion. He made a lot of money. And he calls me up like maybe 6 months after they went public, about 6 months. He's like, and I could do a good Mike Patterson pretty well. So if Mike, if you're listening, this is for you. He's like, hey, buddy. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, hey, buddy, I think I'm going to buy a trucking company. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you were right about the trucks. I'm like, what? He's like, should I buy it? I'm like, are we really having this conversation? You know, he's like serious. He's like, he's going to buy a trucking company and make it part of the trucks electric. And that's what he did. And he ended up buying an EV a company called Battle Motors. It was Crane Carrier turned into Battle. And he was going to make this like transition into EV trucks. So he's like, and then like, I don't know, like a year later, I think like right after we reopened up from COVID, but it was still like COVID. He's like, I'm coming down to South Florida. Let's go grab sushi. You know, he's like, hey, he didn't, I'll give him the shameless plug. He's like, I'm flying down on my private jet. Like, you know, and like, we're going to go have sushi. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go do it. So we do. And he starts talking about, hey, you guys do like EV charging? There was a second customer that asked me the same exact question. I'm like, what? Like, you guys do EV charging? Because I need to do for my trucks. Like when I sell a truck, I need to make sure they have infrastructure and they can charge. So I want to do that like as a turnkey. I don't want to have like, you know, like the truck arrives and there's no charging. Like I need to have someone that can go in there and like do everything ahead of time. So that, but I'm like, he's like, would you like, are you open to doing that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, you got to earn the business. I'm not just going to give it to you. You have to like beat out everyone else in the process. But if you can do that, obviously, like, you know, where my loyalty stands and how I trust you. So I went back in and said, wow, it's the second big customer that I know of that asked if we could do EV charging for them. And then the light bulb went on and said, okay, great. So EV charging, infrastructure, and energy storage, but not just energy storage. Let's pivot to that. And let's do it for large commercial, like municipalities, large commercial retail enterprise customers, et cetera. And we did. And that's how we got to where we were. So everything always, whether you see it or not, is usually happening for a reason, and it will come like full circle at some point. Maybe not in enough time in your lifetime or in the job that you're at. But there wasn't a coincidence that Mike Patterson was telling me, you know, I was telling him about trucks years ago, then he buys a trucking company. And then he's telling me we should get into EV charging. And here we are today, like, you know, almost 7 years later, like, you know, we think becoming one of the biggest EV charging, hopefully, here in the States. And look, to be big, just to be big is kind of annoying. Like to say, oh, look how big we are. What kind of gets me excited about where we put our chargers, like what we do for different cities. And because I think the biggest problem in the States, you know, I was just reading that EV cars and hybrid surpassed like petrol car sales in the UK for the first time. And we're nowhere near there, right? Like our administration, for some weird reason, doesn't believe, like, you know, the big green scam or whatever the weird conversation is. Well, we all know climate's real. And I agree with him on one thing. You should be able to pick what car you drive. That's one thing I can agree on with him on. But we are so far behind on infrastructure for charging here in the US. We're at like a 30-to-1 ratio, meaning for every electric car, right? For every 30 cars, there's one charger. We need to be at like 10-to-1. We need to be like in fast, because the reason why people aren't electrifying is like they go to a charging station and it's either broken because the uptime is not good, or they can't find a charger. And they don't want to have the experience of like they're running out of, you know, they're at 20% state of charge and they're panicking on where they're going to charge. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to get done. And that's kind of like where my brain's at. How do we help because I do think electric cars are really good for a lot of different reasons, and business reasons, not just climate reasons.
Sure.
So we want to help in that process.
Let's come back to that. The bit that I think was interesting to me is, so you created this company, you've raised capital with a viewpoint for it to be an energy storage business. You hear new customer demand in the EV space. What's that conversation like back to the investors to change the business plan or definitely evolve it to a quite a big degree? And, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, it's kind of like, hey, you're shut of luck. No, it's you know, I think it's a hard conversation. They invested in energy storage, and so the easy part of the conversation was, at the time, you had companies like ChargePoint trading like $6 billion valuations with nothing. So the investor is looking for the return on their investment. They're thinking, okay, the valuation's good. This is going to give me a higher valuation pretty quick, like quicker than before. I think the conversation I had was, look, they're all connected. It's kind of like, I used this conversation in a room in New York with an investment bank in a publicly traded charging company. I said, hey, look, what we do, it's kind of like the Reese's peanut butter cup, it's like chocolate and peanut butter. Like EV charging and energy trading will be paired together. There's no question. We have generation issues. I think the largest cost of public charging is energy. So if you can arbitrage energy or take it from renewable sources, like that's great. So eventually we're going to get there. We're not there yet. We'll get there. So I told them we're not really pivoting. We're delaying the energy storage because it's not ready yet. We're not there yet, right? It will be ripe soon. And if you want me to, I could bleed to death. I could bleed out right now and wait for it to happen, or I can pivot to something that's good, and then we're going to bring it back in when it makes sense, right? We're waiting on an award. February 19th, we should hear if we win it, and it's like packed with energy storage. Just, millions of dollars inside of it. And in our Sourcewell contract, which is a government platform which allows people to procure directly from us without having to go through an RFP, we have energy storage on the contract, and we have mobile storage. So we believe in it still. So I think you tell the investors, we believe in it, but here's why it's good for us to pivot to this right now. And we think this will actually raise your valuation long term. And look, not everyone's going to be happy with it, right? But like, I'm an angel investor, and I can't tell you how much I bet on a business that pivots. Like pivoting, I think for a founder means you're trying to do what's best for your business and what's best for the investment. I could sit here and again just bleed out, which is fun. Guys, that's what you guys. I probably won't let that happen, but if that's what you guys really want, and I think also the investor has to trust you. So I think a lot of times, like what I've learned over the course of 7 years now, or whatever, 6.5 years, is constantly fundraising. Like even now, fundraising always, right? You have to manage their expectations and always tell them the truth. Like always tell them the good, the bad, the ugly. I have 100 plus investors right now in the roster. It's crazy, right? So I get a call or a text or an email at any time from whether a guy wrote or a person wrote a small check or a large check. The small check to that person could be a lot of money. So you have to get on the phone and I don't like doing it, but I do it. And then I explain to them, here's where we're at. And they usually don't understand it. So I think the long-winded short answer is you have to tell them what's best for the business and what's best for their investment. And you have to explain to them why this is a better path for their investment. I know it's not what you bet on initially, but it's better than me giving you a zero back, isn't it? This has way more chance for me to get you a return on your investment than before. And then again, at the time, they would go look at multiples and go, wow, EV charging multiples are crazy. Like you're going to be a multi-billion-dollar company. We can't wait for that. And then you're like, no. Let's manage your expectations. We're not close to that right now. Like, don't count your money yet,
Sure. You then said something which I think is one of the crucial parts of this whole conversation, particularly in the politicized nature of it in the US, which is the fact that, yes, you believe in it for the environmental and sustainability reasons, but there is also the commercial reasons that clearly exist, and those two can go hand in hand. They don't need to be opposing, and they can be there. And also your view on how electric charging can be a force for good for community. So it'd be good to just talk a bit more around your philosophy around that and what that means for you.
Yeah, I think it has to financially make sense, right? I think we're way past the point of like, oh, it's a feel good story, right? Like and again, I don't want to get political on a podcast, but like I do think the administration makes a good point about like I actually think the free money that was being allocated here in the States for a long time. Look, there's a lot of grants that are still available, but like it was too much. And I think what it leads to bad behavior. It just does. You start putting chargers in places that they don't need them. They don't make sense, right? Like again, I'm all about serving underserved communities. We do it all the time. But if there's no charging there, you shouldn't put a charger there, right? If no one there is driving an electric car, now they should have access. There's no question about it. Like we don't like to discriminate against anybody ever. Like even when we hire, I think it's really important to be diverse, right? And like whether people think of me, I always look for diverse candidates. Probably hopefully when we work together, it's one of the things I'm gonna tell you. I want to see diverse candidates, right? Not because I have to, because HR says I have to. I believe in diverse thinking is going to solve better problems, right? They're going to see things that I might not see. But with that being said, you do what's best for not just the business, the community as well. And it can't be one or the other, right? That's really important. I think people lose sight of that all the time. Oh, let's make it clean and green and this, that, the other. I'm like, oh, give me a break, right? Like, do you actually believe that? No, right? Because we still have to pay the bills. Like our monthly run rate is massive, right? So like, if I don't do that, then you know what? You'll take one more company out of play that wants to do good in the world. We had a microgrid project down in Haiti. We were brought into by the Clinton Foundation through someone that we know that donates a lot of money to the island, and we were working on it for 2 years. It was a pretty big microgrid, and it's a hospital, the biggest hospital in Haiti. And we understood that if we can keep the lights on in the hospital, we're gonna, like, because hurricanes roll through and they can't get fuel to their generators and they're literally without power. So you're talking about lives, right? That's what happens. People die, right? That's just what happens. And there's no other way of like beating around the bush. Like we got the approval after like 2 years on the design, drawings, everything else. A day before they're going to wire us the money, the United States cut the USAID funds, so they couldn't afford to pay for it. So I tell my team, well, let's figure out how to still do it. Like there has to be a different path, right? Like maybe we can get someone there to donate money. Maybe we could like figure something else out. Like it still needs to get done. So like, yeah, I need to get paid for it because financially I can't just give it to them for free, but I'm willing to take a lot less margin on the deal because I know how important it is to do that project for the island, especially now because of what's happening out, like, you know, the gangs and this, that, the other and whatnot. Right. So I think it has to be both. It's not one or the other, right? It has to be both. And that to me is what I would say, doing the right thing for everybody. Right. And I think when you look at it at the end of the day, if you're doing it right, you take yourself way out of the picture. Like you're not doing it for the accolades. Like if we did that project, like I think I told my mom about it. Like I wasn't bragging. Oh, look how good we are. Like I told my team the other day, like stop trying to be holier than God. Like you're just not. Like be realistic, right? You're still human, right? So be humble about it. And I think those are people and people love that. That's who you want to do business with. So I think to answer your question, the reality is that's be a combination of all those things, right? And if it just becomes a financial win for the company, we've done deals where we make money and that's all it is, right? Because it keeps the lights on and quite frankly, the customer's happy. But that's not what excites us. That's not what we're proud of. That's not like we did the I believe it's the largest vehicle to grid deployment in the state of California. And that was for an underserved community in Northern California. It was, and to date, and it was a couple of years ago, and I talked about it a lot, and people are like, why do you keep talking about it? I'm like, it's one of the products that I'm most proud of. That's why, right? If you don't want to hear about it, just tell me to shut up. I won't keep telling you the story. Like I'm not, and it was with NextEra, so it's obviously it's a big win, but like what made it special was that where it was, and I'm really proud of it. So I think like that to me is what, because at the end of the day, right? And I'll give you one that I like to talk about. I've never seen, and correct me where I'm wrong here, I've never seen it. I've never seen a moving truck at a funeral, ever. Never. I've seen a hearse, but I've never seen a moving truck. So what I mean by that is you don't die with your possessions, right? Now you got to make the money to pay the bills, to keep your salary, keep everyone happy and everything else. But like no one's burying you with like your jet or your yacht or your like 20 Rolexes or whatever else that you really want. That doesn't mean you shouldn't want those things. But like, that's not your legacy, right? That's not what's going to make you like whatever. And I think like, that's really important. Like my goal isn't to aspire to be the richest guy in the energy space. My goal is to hopefully make a decent living, you know, keep my family happy for the next couple of generations, whatever I can, God willing, do, but do good in the world. And if I start with doing good in the world, usually money follows you. Like I've never seen when you chase money, it very rarely comes to you. It's the weirdest thing. It's like running after, and I won't get into like the comparison, but it's like running after whatever you're going to run after, it's going to run away from you. So I think when you blend those two together, doing good and trying to be fiscally responsible, good things will happen.
For sure. And that's where ultimately this podcast came from, which was interviewing those who are running and, you know, leading organizations that are successful but also are doing something with a positive impact. Just back to the technology, I think one of the things you hear about a lot in the US is that the grid can't keep up with the demand of EV, usage. Electric vehicle usage went through the roof, and obviously with the infrastructures you've spoken about. So I'm interested to know a bit more about the technology that's coming and what does that mean. So you mentioned at the beginning this L3 charger that's going to charge a car extremely fast. Could you explain a bit more about that, and
Sure.
maybe where technology is in comparison to what the average citizen would know about it right now, as to where it actually could be?
Yeah, I think on that charger, I had a woman on my team that worked on the Model S at Tesla, and I think it's a smart thing to do. I always like jokingly say I locked her in a room. I clearly didn't lock her in a room. She's been in the military, and she's won't be locked in any room. If she's watching it, Gigi, I would never lock you in a room, but I basically said, go in there and tell me what's missing from the space. Like, I don't know. I'm not the smartest guy. You tell me. You're the genius engineer that helped NASA when the Challenger blew up. You fixed the battery pack. Like, she's a rock star. And she came back and said, there's no charger that's like DC to DC coupled. And I might go, what does that mean? So what it means is you can do a lot of things that you're not thinking about. You can reduce the copper wiring that has to come out from inverters to the charger. Big, huge difference. You can lower CapEx costs by 40%, and you could save a lot of things that'll help with climate. Okay. What else does it mean? You could pair it directly to renewable energy sources, to your point about the grid being too congested, without having enough Oh, that's amazing. You can go directly to yeah, of course. What else can it do? It can improve charging times, speeds significantly, like, down to like 5 to 7 minutes for a car. Like, really? It's like, yeah, and I gave you the caveats earlier, like one battery impact already. Okay, great. So it can do a lot of things that we need, right? And okay, so when, how, what does it look like? So we figured all that out, and we filed the patent. Patent has gone through the process for the last couple of years. It hasn't been touched, so I'm assuming we'll get signed off. The challenge is when it gets signed off, everyone steals it from you. So you're always like, that's why Elon doesn't like to patent anything, because like once it gets patented, it gets publicized, and everyone could be, and quite frankly, companies that have a lot more money than I have can then just build it pretty quickly in a lab and roll it out faster than I can. So we're going to think about when we roll it out and who we roll it out with. Like, we're not going to manufacture, we'll probably contract manufacture with whoever it might be. But again, I think what it's solving for are some of the things that you talked about, right? Because the upfront costs are really, really huge. Like on a deployment, it's really hard to make the numbers work sometimes. Now they're getting better with utilization rising dramatically, but we can lower CapEx by 40%. It's a pretty big deal. When you can tie directly to renewable energy sources, obviously it's huge. And then charging speeds, it's one of the biggest things people complain about. Like, I don't know, my dad has an electric car in San Diego. I don't want him sitting in a strip mall charging it like late at night. It's just not safe. It's a risk, actually. You're a sitting target, to be fair, right? So we as an industry have to come together and figure out how to make the customer experience better. I just mentioned one of the areas with like safety, right? And I was coming back from a dinner in Naples, Florida, driving back to Miami, and because I was driving and I'm like such an idiot, I didn't know this. I was driving so fast, like I'm pushing like 100, and my battery was like dropping dramatically, because the faster you drive, the more energy you're putting out. So I thought it said I had plenty of whatever city charge left to get home. I not even close. So I pull off at a 7-Eleven, because that's the nearest fast charger, and I charge. I'm like, I'm not going into 7-Eleven for like 20 minutes. I mean, I went in for like 2 minutes. I walk right out. Nothing I'm going to eat. Not healthy. I'm done. So I'm literally sitting there like in the middle of nowhere. I'm looking around like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, this is me. Like, I can only imagine anyone else. So those are things that we have to fix as an industry to revolutionize, I think. And the other one is uptime on chargers. A lot of, quite frankly, I call it the first wave of charging companies. And maybe they're getting better now, and I sure hope they are, because we win as an industry. Like, I don't need to be the only winner here. We have to build better technology, so the uptime is in the 90s, not in the 80s, right? Which means that 1 out of every 5 chargers is broken or down. So if you go to a charger and like you're running out of juice and it goes there and it's down, you're like, oh no, I finally got to the 7-Eleven. I barely got there. Now it's not working. What do I do? I got to drive somewhere else. I don't have any energy left. I can't. So I think like we have to figure out how to get the overall experience better by upgrading and increasing the amount. The other one is I mentioned earlier would be wireless charging. Like, I don't know. I literally was walking on my side street yesterday and I see a Waymo car driving down the street. I'm like, this is brilliant. I'm like, wow, Waymo's here. I can't wait to sign up for it. Like, I don't need to drive my car anymore, like I'm ready for it. But we need to have inductive charging for Waymo. I just saw Porsche's coming out with the Cayenne, and one of the functions that they mentioned in the release is inductive charging. Now, the problem with inductive charging is you lose a lot of energy on the wireless charge. So energy is expensive, and energy costs are going through the roof right now based on everything that's happening in the world. So you don't want to lose energy. So we have to make a better inductive charger. That's what Porter Harris, our chief technology officer, is working on. The guy who built the Dragon and Falcon pack or designed it for SpaceX. So I think we're going to get there. And we don't be the only ones that get there. I think we have to, as an industry, get there to make the wireless charging experience better and then make autonomous charging easy for Waymo, right? So they can put more cars in the street or whoever's going to.
So how does the wireless charging actually work?
You just drive a car over a pad and it charges.
Do you have to, so you just drive it onto it, stay there, and then it's charging whilst you're on there, and then
there's people that are, look, I hope they're right, but I don't think they are. I think we have the same problem in media as with any industry. People say a lot of things that aren't really, like if I told you we can charge a car in 5 to 7 minutes and just said that, I'd be lying to you. If I told you we could charge in 5 to 7 minutes, but when batteries in cars are ready to handle the charge, now I'm telling you the truth. So I can go talk to an investor and tell them I can do wireless. I can do, So people say I can do wireless charging. You can just drive on the highway and it's going to wirelessly charge your car. We're not even close to that. We're like, it's like, I'm 10 years at the earliest away. But inductive is, you have a pad, you just drive over it. So if you're, I think Tesla, I read today, by 2035, they're going to have $235 billion in robotaxi revenue per year. Crazy, right? So the stock obviously is going to do well. But where are they charging? Right now, Waymo has to go back to a charging hub and charge all their vehicles. Why not just have wireless charging anywhere? They can charge and be right back on the road. Why have to drive back to a wireless hub? And for Waymo, it's an additional cost. They have to either partner with someone to have a hub or build their own hub themselves. They don't really need. And I think eventually we're all going to be driving autonomous vehicles. Like, I know for me at least, I'd love my parents to be driving it. I love literally, I'm like, I don't want you driving anymore, especially not at night. Like at night, my mom can't drive. She just stays in. But if she unless she calls an Uber, right? But if she had an autonomous vehicle, she just hits her phone up, picks her up in front. She has the best experience. She can go wherever she wants.
I know. So it's recently come to London, and I was telling my family about it in the car, on the way to London, saying, the Waymo's coming, but a really small amounts. And anyway, we're sat at traffic lights, and one went past us.
Wow.
And we're like, it's really here now. So
it's really here now. Yeah, and they work. So, and the thing about driving drunk and everything else, that one drink, you're out with your friends, and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. It's not a good idea, right? And look, I'm not here to lecture anyone. Do what you want, but it just makes the roads that much. I think it's gonna be safer. People are worried about it not being safe. I think it makes the road safer. It will.
But to your point about your business plan and what you can do to facilitate
we can help make sure that when Waymo decides to use inductive or wireless charging, right, the experience is simple. Because right now, let's just say you're charging at a public charging station with a wireless pad. You're still gonna have to do your credit card, put in this up. There's still a transaction that still has to happen. It's called the handshake, right? So on autonomous vehicle charging, we have to figure that out, like in a cloud, where we know, we know the VIN of the car that's pulling up. It's been we're trying to figure out how that works to make it seamless, right? Because there's not gonna be anyone coming into. There's no one that's gonna be able to do the handshake. So when I'm driving in a car, wireless charging, I can go out of the car and do it, and I'm cool. I don't have to pull the nozzle out. So that's a little bit of an advantage for me. But for autonomous vehicles, there's a lot more to it. And I think, again, the number one thing people have to solve for is the loss of energy because all you really, it's almost like if you ever charge on a wireless, your iPhone, right? It's wireless. You're not charging at the same speed.
Yes,
So
yeah, for sure.
so we have to, there's kinks that need to be worked out, but it will be worked out. Look, I would debate with anybody, and if we play this back in 10 years, I hope I'm right. Um, I never seen anyone buy a flat screen TV and go back to a tube TV. I've never seen it.
Mm.
I've yet to see it. Nor I don't even know if they make them anymore, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah, like you wouldn't go back to it, right? So I just don't know how we don't move forward. I've never met anyone that drove an electric car and said like, "God, this is the worst experience. I hate it." Usually it's like,
Mm.
"Well, I love it." A couple of the problems are the charging and this. You know, Someone told me that the other day it's a commitment. Like, oh, it's a commitment. I don't have an electric car because it's a commitment. I'm like, okay, cool, it's a commitment. But you know what? I love the commitment. My car, I charge it, I drive whatever I want, and like, yeah, it's a good commitment. It makes so. I think this is, and then the weird or the interesting part about it is like when we talked to like the Secretary of State here in Florida, for example, his team, which I'm lucky enough to be able to talk to, and great guy, amazing. They're really good people and super smart. They talk about how they're going to be using autonomous, quite frankly, aircraft to police the state. And if you think about like drones, you're going to have bigger vehicles that are going to be policing the state. Now you might have people in them, right? Because like if there's traffic accidents on 95 and it's back to back, it's going to take a long time for them to get there. Autonomous flying vehicles is going to is a real thing. And charging is not just for cars, not just for trucks. It'll be for a lot of other things too. And I think so we have to figure out how to revolutionize. We were talking a Lyft when I was at Romeo, so like 8 years ago, about flying like taxis. And that's real. I mean, that is definitely happening, right? Like now the challenge would be how you get from, and so it's like New York City to JFK. Like you don't want to sit in traffic or I don't know, like in London, you're going to Heathrow, like it's disaster, right? So what do? You can get in an autonomous vehicle. You go to like the top of a building somewhere, it picks you up, you fly there, you're there in 10 minutes, you're good. That's gonna be a really interesting addition to the space people aren't really thinking about. So this is there's a big play here. And I do think what I love about you guys across the pond and, all over the globe, and we've not done our fair share here in the States, is climate is very real. Like it was 30 some degrees in Miami the last 2 days. I saw iguanas freezing and then coming back to life. Like I didn't know that's what they do, but I guess that's what they do. And it was the first time in like, I don't know, like 50, 100 years since we got to be that cold. And today it's 70. If you don't think that's a climate problem, you're just kidding yourself, right? You're living in a dream world, right? And it's not going to get any better. And I always used to say, like, I want to make sure that this planet is inhabitable for generations to come, right? Like, I don't want to be selfish. Like, hey, didn't, and that's what a lot of people are doing here in the States. Well, it's like, it's not going to happen on my watch. What about your kids, your grandkids, your kids' kids? Like, are you that selfish? Why? Right? So, play your part.
Sure. There's so many more things I'd love to talk to you about, but I know we're coming up for time here. One thing we haven't gone into is, or you've touched on loosely, which is around your sort of philosophy when it comes to your team and the type of leader you are. I'm just keen to know, you've hired obviously a lot of people in your time. You've grown some you've grown some fast growing businesses. If there was one trait in people you look for that you could say is fairly common across the high performers that you've always recruited, what would you say is the character trait or characteristic that is something that you're non-negotiable on?
Wow, it's a great question. Non-negotiable for me would be like, I'll answer it in a different way. We had two candidates, both came to us, both really qualified, both from really great companies. One was way more likable than the other, more personable, right? Better energy, more positive. If I was gonna, and I don't know the other person, so it's an hour interview, I would say this person is a better human being at the core than the other. Now, the other person might eventually become a better human being, but where they stand right now, they're just a better person. Because at the end of the day, they have to fit into your culture, into your team, right? So I've had plenty of hires where they're amazing performers, but they're just not good people. that is a problem, right? And you cannot fix that. Like in sales, I always say I can't teach sales. I can teach a lot of things, but I can't teach you how to be a better human being. I can show you. I can lead you down the path. I can preach it during the sales calls. I can tell you like what I do on the weekends and what I study and what I think about. But at the end of the day, right, what are your core values? Do your core values align with what the company stands for? I literally thought about it. It's funny you asked this question. I thought about this today. I said, how blessed am I? Every single person on my team is a good person. It's literally crazy. Like, I'm like, wow. Now I know as we scale the business, it's not going to always be like that, right? And then it's like, okay, that's the hardest part of scaling your business. How do you have this standard in place? It's really remarkable. Like, we have just high quality people, right? So high quality people for me is better than performance, because you know what? People buy you because they like you, right? That's really important. I have a sales engineer who I love. He's the most likable person. He's incredible. I love him, right? Even giving him feedback's hard because I like him so much. So I always have to like caveat it with, hey, I know you're doing a good job, but, and it's so funny. The other thing I look for is, are you going to tell me, like we said earlier, tell me what you think, not what I want you to say. Like, if you're going to yes me to death, I don't want you on the team. Like, I don't need to hire, I need to hire you.
And I think the point of those are two things that sometimes people might think they're diametrically opposed. Like, if I say this, I'm not going to be likable, but actually, to be likable, you need to be honest and authentic and yourself. We say a lot to our clients. Most people hire based upon the skills and the experience of the individual. Like, what have they done? What technical skill set do they have? What experience they have? But people get fired on their behaviors. And if you're not thinking about behaviors, and that's the critical part of your thing, then you're going to create a culture that you don't want. And, you say you're very lucky, but I'm sure it was very intentional, because you've recruited people based on that being a key metric you look at.
I tell you what, how hiring is a process is, you say, like, hire slow, fire fast. I think I used to say Facebook, and one of our big investors was the head of sales at Facebook. I love them to death. But I call it fake book, right? I've never seen people. I mean, now I'm seeing more of it. But I've never seen it. I go on a trip. It's the best vacation ever. My wife and I are always so happy. Like, you guys never fight, right? You never had an argument. Like, I've never seen a picture with you and your wife. Like, you're smiling, you love each other. Then like a week later, you guys are divorced. Like, what happened? I'm missing the point here, right? So I very rarely see a candidate come across my desk that doesn't have like the craziest credentials. Wow, they're incredible. They've everywhere they went, if I get a recruiting call, it's like, he's the top guy. He sold $16 million. He did this. Like, I'm like, wow, he's so great. Why are you even calling me? Like, it's like, I'm so lucky you're even giving him I'm getting a shot to even talk to this person, right? And I think that's like, so one of the first questions I usually ask is, what's the biggest mistake you made in your career and what'd you learn from it? Right? Tell me like what you're not good at. Tell me like, because I get it. You're the best. All right, cool. Like, let's go there. But what aren't you good at? What would your coworker say about you that's something you need to work on? I always say, what's the biggest mistake you made in your career and what'd you learn from it? And they always go like, and this is usually, oh, that's a really good question. I'm like, really? You're stalling for time because you don't even know, right? So I usually say, let me tell you about mine. I have like 100 of them. Like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I make mistakes like all the time. And I always say, like from one of my buddies, Gedalia Fencer, win or learn, never lose. So did you learn from the mistake? That's the most important thing. If you keep making it over and over again, you didn't learn from it. If you don't make any mistakes, you're not the right person for our company, right? Because I was telling my team this: if you're not falling on your face, it means you're not running hard enough. Fall on your face, right? How'd you learn how to ride a bike? What, you rode it perfectly the first time? You fall on your face, it hurt, you got back up. Like, and resiliency is critically important, because if you're perfect your whole path and you never had any blemishes, first of all, you're not real. You're fake book. And second of all, right? How can you be resilient? I want you to be resilient, because you know what? That's what wins. Resiliency wins, right? And that's important. So to me, authenticity is important. Transparency is important. And there's a lot of skills that you probably should have. But I think, again, having the right values, I think being self-aware is important. Are you trusting? Are you trustworthy? Right? Are all those things. Like, and again, you're right. We've done a really good job. We've learned along the way. We've got rid of people that like probably shouldn't be here. And the funny part is usually as a manager, a hiring manager, you can manage them out. You don't even need to fire them. You put the flashlight on top of them, and then they usually like can't handle it and they like walk out themselves, which is the best. And then you tell them, hey, look, it's all good. I hope it works out for you. Like I never have a grudge when someone leaves the company. Like I'm okay with it, right? And I think that's the candidates that we want. And again, hopefully we can work together. I love people that tell me like, hey, look, this guy's amazing, but here's why on his resume he jumped around a little bit. Instead of me trying to be like, let me ask you the question. Like, yeah, you worked here for 2 years, then you worked there for a year. Oh, but in that company, the boss and this happened, this happened. Why don't you just tell me you screwed up, man? Or you made a bad decision. You signed up for the wrong company. Just tell me the truth. Don't try to like cover up the cover up, right? Like I always say, like you can't bullshit a bullshit artist. So like, why are you trying to bullshit me, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Appreciate that. So look, to finish with, and you've touched on it slightly, but as I mentioned with the podcast, the purpose of this is to engage with people who have done great things, but are understanding that there is more to it than just the financial and commercial outcomes. When you look back on your career, and obviously you've already done so much, but when you look back at the end of Positive Energy, or whatever you create it to be before you hand it over, what would make you feel proud to say that you've left the world better than you found it?
Yeah, I think from a people perspective, if I help people on my team get to where they wanted to go, whether at this company or anywhere else, that's a huge win. I mean, that's probably what I'm the most proud of over my career, is people that like worked with me. I hate to say worked for me, but reported to me. Where they sit right now is remarkable. Like where they are, I mean, a lot of them are way higher than where I sit. And I'm just like, wow, amazing. I'm so proud of that, right? And that I feel like I did my part. For the business, I think if we can get the climate a little bit more under control, and we had a little piece of that, that'd be amazing for me. Like I would feel really good about that. I got out of bed every morning and I helped make a little bit of difference in the climate fight, right? And then I think from a financial perspective, paying my investors back like tenfold. Like you took a flyer on me when we had nothing, we were nobody, and maybe we still are nobody, right? But when we God willing, take this company, whether it's private equity, going public, whatever, hopefully the liquidity event will be, right? I want to pay them back, like huge. I was going through issuing some more equity to the company. And usually if you're the CEO, you're like, okay, here's how much I'm going to get, right? And I don't need a medal for it, but we're running out of the current pool. We probably need to refresh it. And I said, no. I said, I talked to one of my employees. I'm like, no, I think we got to get you this number. He wasn't even in the conversation, right? He was helping me do the analysis. And I said to him at the end, I go, what about you? He's like, what do we mean? What about me? I go, I think you need to be bumped up to this number. He's looking at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, of course. So I think like hopefully being fair to everybody, your investors, your employees. And then, the last thing I'd say, and I think this is a really important piece. If you give back, like I give back a lot, do a lot of charity work. I have co-founder of a charity. I do a lot of other charity work, not to brag about it, I just do. It's probably the thing that makes me the happiest in my life is the philanthropic work that I do. But it's contagious. When you give, other people will give too. So it could be just your time. You could volunteer at a soup kitchen. You could give your money. You could, whatever it is that you give someone respect, give them their attention, right? You're not in a meeting with your cell phone out, right? You're actually present. Those things are contagious. It's like the butterfly effect. They rub off on everyone else around you. So I think those are the things when I when I leave this world or I leave this company or whatever it's going to be, right? That's the legacy I want. Like, you know what? That's it. And I don't need I would say this, the last thing I'd say is everything that you get, I believe comes from whoever you believe God is. It's not your talent, right? It's on loan to you in this lifetime if you don't abuse it and use it right. So make sure you know where it comes from. A lot of people think it comes from them. It's not coming from you. It's coming from whoever you believe the higher power is. Like, we don't need to get religious on this, right? But you were given a gift when you were born. Use that gift. You're doing yourself a disservice. Like I used to always say, like, I don't want to be the guy on my tombstones. Like, Ed had all this potential, but never used it. what if, could have been, should have done that, didn't do this. What are you waiting for, right? No one knows how much time we have on this planet. Go take advantage. Maximize your day. You're going to be in the office from 9 to 5, in our cases, I don't know, 8 to 8, whatever it is, right? 7 to 10, right? Be productive. Make the most of it, right? And that's contributing, being a good person, being a good colleague, giving fair advice. I'll give you my one blemish, and it's a huge one. I was so busy yesterday, I forgot about someone's anniversary in the company. It crushed me. She's an incredible employee. It was in my calendar, but sometimes when you're reaching out to me, I don't have time. I'm trying to but I want to respond. What do I do, right? So I called her late at night. I felt really horrible about it. I was fine. I was just talking to her brother earlier. I'm close with the family. She's super important to me as a person. She's like, what are you talking about? I expect you to remember my anniversary and this, but I knew it was your anniversary. And so this morning, literally, I got up, I ordered from myself personally a gift, sent it to her house, right? I think she's going to love it. I didn't do it because I was like, oh, I felt bad. I knew I did something I shouldn't have. And I quickly admitted that I did it wrong, and I owned it. And I think for me, the last thing I say is be accountable for your actions. Always be accountable for what you do. I think in today's world, it's so easy to go like this, point the finger at everybody else instead of being accountable for no, I made a mistake. I should have slowed down and found the time to acknowledge her for all the years of her incredible work that she's done. I didn't do that. So I could have done two things. I could have hey, whatever. It's I'm so busy. You know what? Here's a quick little email. You're good enough. No, I owned it. And I called her and I took care of it. And then look, when she gets the gift tomorrow, she'll give me ecstatic, right? She'll be like, oh my God, da, 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 right? And she'll forget about that. I forgot. But I'm not trying to cover up the blemish. I'm trying to own the blemish. And I want to make sure, like I said before, learn. Don't let that happen again, right? You have plenty of chances to correct it. So be the best person you could be in the job that you're given. Be grateful for what you have and know where it comes from.
Well, I think that's a great place for us to end. So thank you so much for your time and being so generous with your stories, your advice and guidance. Best of luck with the contract award. I really hope that that comes to fruition and
thank you so much
and elevates you to the place that you should be. And who knows, maybe next time it's going to be the autonomous flying vehicle award that's
there you go,
written all over it. So yeah, we'll stay in touch. We'll see how it goes. Amazing. If people have listened to this episode, they're inspired by what you've got to say, they are in this sector, they want to collaborate or do things, are you happy for people to reach out or engage with you?
Absolutely, 100%.
Great. Well, we'll pin your LinkedIn profile at the bottom for them to reach out to. But
thank you so much for your time. You're one of the good guys in the industry and a pleasure to work with. Honored to be part of your podcast.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you.
All the best.
Cheers.
EJ's story proves that the most successful leaders don't pretend to know everything, but they surround themselves with the people who do. And what also stands out to me is his ruthless determination to focus on the problem, not the solution. He didn't just stick with battery storage because that was his original idea, but he pivoted to the market he believed it actually was. Even if it meant a very hard conversation with his investors. And he reminds us that whilst technology is absolutely crucial, it's the ability to translate that technology into a clear, honest, and succinct business plan actually creates the solution. And that solution is better infrastructure built all round. And that's truly how you leave an industry better than you found it. To learn more about EJ's work, then please visit his LinkedIn profile or the Positive Energy website. And if you enjoyed the conversation today, then please don't forget to share it with a friend or a colleague to help amplify our message that we try to make. Until next time, take care.